So I got this exactly a year ago now. Oh, I love it. Enjoy the drives on the in the hills. Just mountain climbs. Plan to do some track days. Really enjoying it at the moment. Yeah, the power, balance, and weight balance it's really nice. Yeah, certainly a driver's car. Yeah. You would have seen the piano blacks, noticeable little scratches. And aside from that, just on the bonnet, there's a couple of lines there that I've noticed from the factory. But aside from that, I'm hoping the paint pops out quite a bit. As you can see, it's a pearl white, so it should pop out quite nicely after you're done. And looking to give us some protection as well over the coming years.
We'll see you a little bit down the track, and hopefully you'll be happy with it, right?
Excellent, sounds good.
Awesome.
Sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder the soul of the spirit of the joints of the marrow, and is the critical thoughts and intents of the heart. All Scripture is God-breathed and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. The command of God might be mature, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not. Preparation for our study of the Word of God this evening, the next few moments are devoted to silent prayer. The purpose is to give you the privacy of your priesthood to rebound if necessary, and to otherwise prepare yourself for the study of the Word of God. Let us pray. As we come to the end of this year, Father, we have seen once again on a daily basis the provision of grace that is exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever imagine, ever dream, ever think, or ever conceive. Your provision and your plan on what is known to us and what is unknown is absolutely fantastic. As we come to the end of this year, we recognize as never before who and what Jesus Christ is, therefore who and what you are, and who and what the Spirit is. That which we study, one of the Psalms says that in honor we might be occupied with it. For we ask it in Christ's name, amen.
Okay guys, so as you can see, we've got quite a rare 2021 Toyota Yaris GR Rallye spec in for a detail. With this video, I'm just going to fill you in as quick as I can about this job and briefly talk you through the detailing process as we get to each area bit by bit, trying to highlight my methods but also allow the footage to do most of the talking, so that this video will hopefully be both an educational and enjoyable viewer experience. So each job always starts with questions about the vehicle and the owner's goals, as you would have heard part of during the car's delivery. Why? Because information about how the car has been and will be used, kept and maintained, as well as what the owner would like addressed, is vital information in allowing me to deliver the best possible result. Secondly, I do a quick walk around and then more thorough pre-detail inspection to try and gain a better understanding of the car's current condition, see if any obvious defects or issues stand out, and then weigh that up with the information given to me by the owner. So how did I benefit from this initial process and information? Although it's a daily driver, I know this car is garaged and not a super high mileage vehicle. For a year-old car, it's in great condition, which leads me to believe that the owner is someone who will put the proper care and work into maintaining it post-detail. The pearl white paint only seems to have a few random defects or blemishes, while the piano black plastics seem overly littered with swirls, scratches, water spots and haze, leading me to believe that they're overly soft and sensitive even for trims of this nature, so they will require extra attention. The glass also seems like it would greatly benefit from polishing to address quite a few water spots or etchings, and the wheels could also do with a good thorough clean. The owner is limited in his budget, which basically means I have to stick to a deadline, but apart from enhancing the paint and correcting the black trims, he also wants the paint, trims, glass and wheels ceramic coated. So I know the general condition of the vehicle, what needs the most attention and what my client's goals are. Now I just have to get to it. Starting with the wheels, which I love this lightweight design and I think they suit the car perfectly. I gave them a chemical pre-treatment, allowed it to dwell and break down the grime, and then followed up with a pressure rinse to remove as much of the contamination as possible before the physical clean. Surface dirt being pushed around the paint with mitts and brushes is what generally causes swirls, so the more you can remove in a touchless manner, the safer and more respectful result you'll achieve. I used a dedicated alkaline cleaner for the wheel wells and tyres with some specific brushes that tend to be more effective on those particular surfaces, while for the painted metal rims I used a more dedicated pH balanced iron and traffic film wheel cleaner to both safe and effectively clean the inner and outer wheel faces with a selection of brushes and a wheel mitt. Each wheel took about 10 minutes in total, but I think they all came up extremely clean and looking great as preparation for the coating at a later stage. With the wheels cleaned, I moved on to the body of the vehicle, starting with a pre-soak foam treatment. I used an alkaline leaning detergent, which in my experience tends to be the best place to start in tackling that top and initial layer of dirt and grime, to help soften and loosen that contamination so that it will be far easier and more effectively removed. The snow foam was applied bottom up to achieve the best and longest dwelling application, allowed to sit for about 10 minutes and then pressure rinse down using a very methodical and thorough technique to ensure as much of the looser dirt was removed in order to make the next physical wash stage as safe and effective as possible.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We will keep in mind and remember that Barry Goldwater has faith in us
He has faith that you and I have the ability and the dignity and the right to make our own decisions and determine our own destiny. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the skies. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. But I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
Next up was the physical hand wash stage. In this process, I used an acid-leaning detergent in my wash bucket. In the last couple of years, I've really come to appreciate the combination of using both mild alkaline and acid cleaners to tackle a wide variety of environmental contamination. What I've found is that alkaline cleaners tend to be better at removing the primary outer layer of dirt and oils, while acid cleaners tend to be more effective after the alkaline cleaner has been used to tackle mineral and even existing paint protection products. Now, in truth, both cleaners can address much of the same contamination, but used in sequence, I found they really seem to complement each other in achieving a very safe and effective wash and decontamination result. Now, on close inspection of the many intricate trims all over the vehicle, I could see quite a bit of trapped dirt in areas where a wash mitt was just simply too large to fit and clean effectively. So I used a dilution of my strip car wash detergent together with a soft bristle brush to help loosen and dislodge the dirt trapped in those tight and sensitive trim areas. After yet another pressure rinse down to flush out any remaining dirt or detergent residue, I spent a little time inspecting the paint and trims. Now what I observed was that the paint felt a little tacky and the water behaviour was fairly poor, meaning that the paint looked and felt free of any previous paint protection products, which was great. Furthermore, I couldn't feel any environmental fallout or see any tar deposits or stubborn particles that would warrant further chemical or mechanical decontamination processes. In other words, this year-old Yaris that's been garaged and well maintained just didn't have any strongly bonded particles that my process so far wasn't able to remove. So don't fall into the trap of thinking you have to use stronger iron, tar and traffic film removers or clay every vehicle you come across. Inspect and evaluate your process as you go and only get more aggressive when you need to be. The car was then given a quick and gentle towel dry that was followed by using blown air to remove the remaining trapped water in preparation for the following pre-correction steps. After a good decontamination process, the vehicle's hydrophobic behaviour will tend to be poor, meaning that using blown air on its own tends to be an extremely lengthy process to dry it. So the combination of using a microfiber towel to soak up a lot of the standing water prior to using blown air is a far quicker and more efficient method. The first pre-correction step was an IPA panel wipe down. After a lengthy decontamination and drying process, there's always a certain amount of streaks, spots, chemical residue and moisture remaining on the vehicle that can interfere with the correction process. So an IPA wipe is performed to remove that final layer of light contamination so that the vehicle is truly clean, bare and bone dry, which allows the following steps like masking, inspecting, measuring and correcting the paint to go far more smoothly. Now what you'll notice as I'm taking paint thickness readings on the bonnet is that it's averaging about 95 microns in total on that panel. But then the readings jump about 25 or so microns higher on the pillars, front and rear fenders, while the readings drop back down on the doors and rear hatch. Why? Because the lower readings are on alloy panels that don't require a layer of primer as they don't rust, while the higher readings are on primed steel panels that have primer as they can rust. So this is just something to understand and why you may see such a variance in the readings on certain vehicles. As a detailer, it's really the top layer of clear coat that we're interested in predicting its thickness. A good way to do this is to measure the door jambs, which usually just have a single layer of clear coat applied, somewhere in the realm of about 20 microns or so. So if I'm averaging about 85 microns in total on the steel door jambs and about 130 microns on the steel outer panels, I would predict about 65 microns of actual clear coat on average on the exterior paint. So is this good or bad? Honestly, on modern cars that simply have less clear coat applied, it's pretty decent by today's standards, and compared to some other new cars I've recently detailed that have less than half this amount, I'll definitely take it. With the paint and trims clean and bare, this is a time we can truly assess its condition. Now, pearl white paint such as this is just about the most difficult paint to capture on camera. So unless it's really trashed, it's near impossible to see the defects in the footage. Now, in saying that, the only defects I could see were some very minor swirls and haze that I had to search for in order to spot. So if you want a paint that's going to hide defects, a nice pearl white is without a doubt the way to go. The glass has a few water spots and just a lack of clarity and luster that should come up well with just a good polish. But it's really the clear and piano black plastics that need a lot of attention. Now, it's not like they're completely trash, but there's significant water spotting, a few deeper edgings, swirls, deeper scratches, and a layer of haze that have really dulled and degraded their finish in pretty short order. The final pre-correction step was masking the trims. Apart from the sensitive gloss black trims that will be polished, there's also quite a few sensitive satin to matte trims that need to be masked and protected from polishing, as that would create gloss on those trims and alter their factory finish. So onto some testing to determine what polish, pad and technique I'm going to use to correct and prepare the paint and trims prior to coating. Being that the white paint has only very minor defects and that Toyota paint isn't typically very hard, a very fine polish and pad is without a doubt the best place to start. I used a fine primer polish, which is basically a non-aggressive polish that tends to finish and refine paint extremely well, while also leaving behind an additional gloss and saturation boosting sealant that promotes bonding with the ceramic coating. Now what you'll see is that I did a few test sections using this polish with a few different pads, ranging from finishing, polishing and intermediate foam pads, all of which are very non-aggressive pads, but just slightly to different degrees to see what was going to be the best option here. The general technique I used was performing about 3 row passes in a half meter square section using moderate pressure, a slowish arm speed and mid to high machine speeds. In other words, this is a single stage correction process that needs to remove very light defects while also boosting gloss, depth and saturation levels to give the paint some added pop and allow the following ceramic coating to effectively bond. That's really the ultimate goal. As I mentioned earlier, it's just so difficult to see the results on this pearl white paint on camera. As you'll see, I tried dimming the lights and adjusting my camera exposure to help, but it was still hard to see the clear and before-after results that I could see in person. But basically what I discovered was that while all 3 pads were finishing quite well, the red pad just struggled to have much of an impact in removing even the finest swirl marks, and while the orange pad seemed to do a better job, it was really the section with the blue intermediate pad that had removed all the fine defects and even seemed to create a little more gloss and clarity, meaning that on this particular paint as a one-step enhancement process, the blue pad was definitely the winner here. Now, being that a large part of the correction process will be restoring the clear and piano black trims, I also did a few test sections on those trims, more of which you'll see later on. Although these trims were obviously worse in terms of existing defects, they also had obviously softer clear coat applied. So unlike the white paint that I'd say was a medium hardness paint with very minor defects, these trims had a very soft paint with moderate to heavier defects in some places. To my surprise, I found that the same combination worked just as well on those very different trims. However, I did need to adjust my technique. So what I worked out in the end was that if I reduced the amount of polish on the pad, switched to clean pads more often, eased off the pressure, worked shorter polishing cycles and moved my arm a little quicker, the result was actually pretty fantastic and at least a 90% improvement in both defect removal and gloss enhancing levels. In some cases with my mini and macro polishers, I used a different but slightly similar pad, and I had to be extremely gentle with the wipe off and in some cases go over the trim twice, but it did end up working very well in the end. As far as a general working method goes, I started by correcting the more intricate, sensitive and time-consuming areas with my smaller machines and pads, followed by the larger and flatter areas with my larger polishers, making sure to overlap these sections for the best and most consistent result. I can tell you that once I got down to business, I was even surprised at just how many sharp body lines and dramatic curves and crevices this tiny little hot hatch has. What this meant is about 70 to 80% of the paint and trims were corrected with smaller 3, 2 and 1 inch pads, and even hand polishing in a number of areas, simply for the fact that larger polishers and pads were just too big to fit into and correct the paint on the vast majority of this vehicle, at least in a safe and respectful manner. I can also tell you that although the clear and piano black plastics make up about 15% of the surface area, they were about 50% of the work as far as polishing time goes.
A new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are men on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
The vehicle's glass was another area on its own that did require a bit of work and attention. I used the exact same polishing pads, but whereas I needed to use very gentle techniques with the sensitive trims and paint, glass is just a super hard surface that's extremely forgiving to work with. So you can breathe a little easier and work with a little less stress and issues. Now I did a video a little while back showing and discussing the process of removing extremely bad water edgings from glass, dramatically worse than these. But I think where I failed with that video was to highlight the benefit of polishing car glass compared to just removing water spots with, let's say, a strong acid cleaner. Beyond removing mineral water deposits, polishing also has the benefit of addressing superfine swirls, preparing the glass for a more durable bond with a glass sealant or coating. But beyond any of that, a good glass polishing result just adds a beautiful clarity, sheen and luster to glass that you simply can't achieve by just using chemicals to remove water spots or etchings. It's just a very different visual result. I'd actually say that on this job, the glass was my favourite result, and I think the most visually impactful finish as it just gleamed so beautifully after the correction and coating process. For me, this whole correction process was like working on two different cars. The pearl white paint was just a joy to correct. I never had to do more than one set of passes. The wipe off was always super easy and the result was just really satisfying, seeing the pearl flakes pop and get a little richer and warmer in tone as I progressed. The clear and black gloss trims were another story from a galaxy far, far away. They just couldn't have been more different or difficult to work with. The wipe off was always tacky. It was just hard to get them right the first time and it just felt like I was correcting a glossy marshmallow. Now piano black plastics are never nice or easy to work with even at the best of times. But I have to say that in the range of these trims and finishes, the ones on this Yaris GR were up there with some of the most sensitive and painful ones to work with that I can ever remember. I can't film everything I do in these videos, it's just too time consuming, but I will tell you that I tried several things from different cloths to different pads, compounds, waiting half an hour before wiping, using damp cloths and so on to try and find a way to make my life easier with those trims. But in the end, nothing really seemed to change all that much. Like I said earlier, I was very happy with the end result, but what I'm trying to point out here is that it was a painful journey getting there. But enough of that. This is the job, these are the challenges, and you only get better at what you do by tackling them head on and finding a way through. You never learn as much when things go smoothly, so try to embrace a few bumps in the road as it's all extremely valuable experience. What I'd lastly add here is that you can't change something like the crazy soft paint on these trims, but what you can change is how you respond. You can moan about it, give up, or you can stop, take a breath, as I did here a few times, and come back with a better mindset that you'll do the best you can, take it on as a challenge, and I guarantee you'll be a better person for it. Once the paint, glass and trims were all corrected, the next stage was coating the wheels. I started by using compressed air to blow off any dust and then followed up with an IPA wipe to prepare them for the ceramic coating. Now, as I'll be using a certified professional coating for the paint and trims, I'll also have enough left over to coat the face of the rims with that same bottle. The coating was applied to a foam applicator, evenly spread over the wheel face and then thoroughly worked over and into the area for the most uniform application possible. The coating was allowed to flash and bond for a short period, which was then followed by a primary wipe down to remove the majority of the excess coating. After that, using a clean side of the cloth and a diffused inspection light, I proceeded to do the final wipe down to remove any streaks or high spots in the coating's finish, to ensure I have a perfectly level and clean coating finish. Once all 4 wheels were ceramic coated and given a little more time to set and cure, the final stage on the wheels was dressing the tyres. I used a favourite water-based tyre dressing of mine with a foam tyre applicator and spent a good couple of minutes massaging it in and over the tyre walls to allow the dressing to soak in and bond and have a nice uniform finish. I think the wheels just look darker, richer, glossier and just amazing after the coating and dressing stages and should really complement the rest of the car once it's all done. Next up was coating the glass. For this I used a dedicated glass ceramic coating. So after allowing the primer polish to set, cure and harden over all the paint, trims and glass for about a day, it's ready to accept a semi-permanent ceramic coating. The front windscreen was divided into 3 areas, with each section getting 3 consecutive layers of the coating. This particular glass coating has an extremely rapid flashing and bonding time frame, so it's a coating you need to move a little quicker with and layer almost immediately to achieve the best result in my experience. Once all 3 layers have been applied, I use the same applicator to further level and even out the coating before using short pile microfiber cloths to get the glass completely streak free. Then the other 2 sections of the windscreen were completed using the very same process. On the side and rear glass panels, just a single layer of the glass coating was applied. In my experience, 3 layers of a glass coating on the front windscreen, which takes a lot more punishment, will last just as long as a single layer on the side and rear glass, which obviously aren't subjected to as much environmental and user decay. The last stage of protecting the vehicle's surface was applying a pro-grade ceramic coating to the paint and trims. starting from the top of the vehicle and then working my way down and around. All the white paint, clear, piano black, matte and rubber trims were ceramic coated. The coating was applied to approximately a half meter square section at a time, evenly spread in using several overlapping motions, allowed to flash, bond and haze for a couple of minutes, and then leveled down with microfiber cloths to remove the excess coating and finish streak free. Contrary to some belief, ceramic coatings and even waxes and sealants don't create a glossy finish when applied to satin or matte surfaces such as the vinyl wrap roof or the matte plastics and rubber trims. A good ceramic coating will, however, give those matte and satin finishes improved saturation, definition and richness, as well as obviously help protect them from environmental exposure. In other words, paint protection products don't magically create gloss. It's really polishing or paint correction that does that. But what good looking paint protection products can do is increase and amplify the look and finish of both glossy and matte surfaces to a greater level. Once again, I know it's hard to really see the impact of the coating on the white paint in the footage compared to the black trims that had a more noticeable impact on camera. But I can tell you that in person, the pearl flakes just popped and gleamed so much more on the white paint, and as a whole, it just looked a little warmer and more golden in tone. And this is the thing I really love about white cars with black trims. It's just such a nice complementary contrast that gives the vehicle's shape and form fantastic definition. With all these video blogs I do, I try to be as honest about the process as I can. So one thing I want to touch on was the coating experience and result as a whole. Now, just like the correction process on the pearl white paint, it was once again a real pleasure and rewarding experience ceramic coating it. It just all went extremely well. However, just like the correction process on the clear and piano black plastics, it was once again a problematic process. The coating was just more tacky and grippy to both apply and wipe off over those more sensitive trims, and simply just a lot more difficult to work with. In the end, it was virtually impossible to ceramic coat those particular trims without causing any minor wiping swirls or haze. Now, even with this little issue, those trims still came up extremely well, and I'd say at least 80% better than they were originally. But it was still a little heartbreaking seeing a few new wiping swirls being created, even though I was as gentle as I possibly could have been. I can tell you that I did a little experimenting with a different coating, some different cloths and application techniques, but once again there just didn't seem to be a way to coat those trims without at least some minor wiping marks being inflicted. Here's the thing, guys, I know I tried and did my absolute best, and in the end I need to be happy with that or I'd likely go insane. Nothing's ever perfect. To me, the roof's carbon fiber wrap and even some of the satin window trims had a little patchiness in the factory finish that I hoped the ceramic coating would better improve and smooth out. But they are what they are, guys, and it's not like these trims would stop me from buying this amazing little car. It's just something you notice when you spend hour after hour detailing a vehicle so closely. Like I said, I don't want these videos to be all peaches and cream, as every job has its challenges and no job is ever perfect. But in the end, I was super happy with the results. The car without a doubt looked amazing. It should be well protected for years to come, and the owner was very appreciative and thankful for all the hard work, so for me, it was a great success. I think I'll leave it there, guys, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to say thanks and help support future content, you can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ccad, in which I'll leave a link to in the description box, or you can now hit the thanks button below the video. And thank you everyone for the support so far. As always, I really hope you guys enjoyed and found this video useful. Please share it with others, give it a like and comment below to show your support for this content, and I'll see you guys soon.
The wheels look nice, look brand new. Yeah, that's better than when I got it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Looks great. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. Like you can see the difference already from this angle. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely happy with it.
Yeah, awesome.